welcome everyone to today's webinar. Glad to see a number of people here in attendance. My name is Daniel Voss, in case we haven't met. This webinar is all about increasing your search ranking in Google. And you're going to get some insights into how churches rank in the top 3 of Google search results. You're going to learn a bit about how to tap into the $10,000 per month of free funding from the Google Ad Grants program. And then you're also going to get a 30-day action plan to start increasing your search ranking. So go ahead and type yes in the chat if you're ready to learn how to get your church, how to rank higher in Google. All right, very good. And just as we get started, if you could just indicate in the chat the name of the church that you're with and the city and state. I see we have a number of people here. Columbia Presbyterian Church in Columbia, Maryland, Sovereign Grace, OPC, Oak Harbor, Washington, Covenant OPC, San Jose. Wonderful. So glad y'all can be here today. So, and Christ the King PCA in Roanoke, Virginia. Very good. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So, as you know, you wouldn't be here if you weren't aware of the reality that one of the most common ways people find a church near them in this day and age is by going to Google and doing a search. And there are millions of monthly Google searches specifically for churches near me. And 70% of all user clicks are from the first 3 results that show up. So just to be very clear about this, make sure everybody understands this. When somebody searches for a church online, this is typically what people see. It has either 3 or 4 results. This is the most common thing that people see when they're searching for a church online. And this is called the map pack, is sometimes what you'll hear people refer to it. But basically 70% of all the clicks for church near me, or in this case, church in Reno, Nevada, 70% of all the clicks, there's probably, if I had to guess, there's probably 100, 200, maybe 300 or so. There's hundreds of searches per month for church in Reno. 70% of all the clicks are just going to go through these 4 that show up first. By the way, this one is a bit unusual in that the first result that shows up is a sponsored result. And so again, toward the end of these slides, we'll get into a little bit about the Google Ad Grants program that was mentioned in some of the invitation emails. And put a 1 in the chat if you're ready to start learning about how churches show up, how you can get your church to show up in these top 3. Okay, great. All right, so there's 6 pillars that we're going to talk about today. So the first one is the Google Business Profile or Google Maps Profile. I usually refer to it as the Google Maps Profile. It's the same thing. In the context of churches, we think ourselves, well, the church is not a business. And so, although there are lots of logistical aspects to running the church. So Google Business Profile, Google Maps Profile, in my mind, those are the same thing. Second thing we're going to talk about is a couple of the technical aspects of search engine optimization, site speed, and some other things. Third thing is we're going to talk about is basically the keyword research and how to map those keywords to different pages on your site. Fourth thing is structured data. So we'll talk a little bit about this thing called schema.org markup and some related things that are helpful to get your church to rank high in those top 3. And then fifth component is off-page and video factors. You kind of get 2 for the price of 1 there. And then finally, we'll get to information about Google Ads Grants. All right, go ahead and press a 1 in the chat if you're ready to start learning about the Google Maps profile. Great. Okay, so these are 3 key factors to how a church shows up on a within that Google Map pack. So that again, that's that display of the 3 top results that I was showing for the Reno, Nevada example. The first factor, and this is something that is distance. That's the first factor. This is why, real estate is a factor. So where the church is physically located, where it meets, is a factor. But there is also one thing that you can do, and we should all make sure that we're doing wherever our church building happens to be located, and that is to make sure that the photos that are being uploaded to the Google profile are actually geotagged with the coordinates of the building or the place where you meet. So that's a little thing that we should all make sure that we're doing. The second thing here, relevance. So this relates to having the Google Maps profile filled out. And by the way, as I'm going through this, if you have any questions that you just don't want to forget, you can go ahead and type them into the chat. And then that way we'll have a record of them so that once we get to the question and answer time, we can start going through those. But this relevance aspect is making sure that you have the most precise category for your church that you can. So rather than just saying church, then you might want to say Presbyterian church or Reformed church. Now, the third factor is prominence, and this is probably really 80% of it or more for most churches. And this is the extent to which you're actually using the Google Maps profile and people are actually adding things to it. So this is things like people posting reviews on it, responding to reviews, adding posts, filling out all of the information that Google wants to have on your profile, maintaining a very thorough, frequently asked questions section on your website. So all of those things are, again, that's probably, as far as things that you do for the Google Maps profile, that's probably the main improvement opportunity for most churches. So this provides an example of the kinds of specific things. And as we go through this, you're going to see that I have, specific tool recommendations for each one of these 6 pillars. So for this first pillar of the Google Maps profile, you want to make sure that your Google Maps profile has been claimed, like you can see for this example. If it's not been claimed, you'll see a little link on here that says claim this profile. But once it is claimed, you see all of this information. You see the profile strength. So you always want to make sure your profile strength has a green circle and it says looks good. This will change from time to time. You might see it look orange or red, in which case it's going to give you some very specific things to fill in some information. The thing I was talking about with categories, categorizing your business, you can see this one is Presbyterian church. It's not just church generically. You can click on edit profile to adjust that categorization. And then you can see in this case, thankfully, the church is getting more and more reviews. So that's a very helpful thing. There's lots more we could talk about with Google Maps profile. This is pillar number 1 of the search ranking. Any questions on that before I move on? If there's something that you want to make sure we address during the Q&A time, just go ahead and maybe type that in the chat or make note of it so we can come back to it towards the end. But if not, go ahead and type a 2 in the chat, indicate you're ready to go on to pillar number 2. Okay, great. So pillar number 2 is technical infrastructure. So there's really 2 things to highlight here, which is core web vitals and site structure. So the web vitals relate to the mobile design of the site, the page speed, and then also the security of the site. And we'll look at an example of the tool that really the tools that Google provides that you can use to make sure that your site is set up properly. The second thing relates to the site structure. You want to make sure that, especially if your site has a little bit more depth to it, which many church websites do, that especially when you get into these specific events, individual posts, individual sermon pages, that they all have a very clear internal linking structure, and that there's no orphan pages. So let me show you the tools that Google provides that allow you to diagnose any problem areas. So the first one is called PageSpeed Insights. And what this does is it allows you to see if there's any problems with the page load speed. So the example I have on the screen is actually showing the 5 More Talents website, and it's showing that we actually do have some improvement opportunities here on mobile. And that's what this PageSpeed tool is designed to do. It's designed to show you basically what the different factors are here. So hang on just a second. Sorry about that. Had a 4-legged canine dog friend that that jumped in for a second, but she left now. So anyway, let's move on. Let's continue on here. So going on to the next thing, Google has Search Console. And so this section on indexing is where you would see if there's any problems in how the pages are all linked together on your website. One of the things to look at is whether you have a sitemap that has been submitted and whether that can be read by Google search. And then this indexing section will also show you like how many of the pages are indexed and if there's any that it's aware of but aren't indexed and that kind of thing. So Google Search Console is the tool that you need to use to make sure that you don't have any technical problems. Any questions on that? Anything you want to come back to during the Q&A time, feel free to go ahead and type that in. Otherwise, type in a 3 if you're ready to go on to pillar number 3. Okay, great. So pillar number 3 relates to basically keywords and how that maps to the pages on your site. So keywords are classified into 4 different categories commonly: informational, commercial, transactional, and navigational. Commercial is obviously a little bit weird in the context of a church, since a church is not a business. However, you can think about types of keywords that maybe indicate that somebody is more serious about actually visiting the church or getting involved. So that's why the example there is best youth groups. Informational would be questions, maybe blog post topics, topical sort of things. What does the Bible say about such and such? Those sorts of things. Transactional would be, here's an example, VBS registration. And then navigational would be maybe people trying to find a particular page on the site. So you can see here, this kind of lists some strategy for how to set up that content the best, and then some tips on technical execution as well. So before I go any further, I do want to share a few links related to those of you that want to follow up. The first one is a link to my book. So I'm going to give you a free copy, a free PDF copy of my book, The Church Leader's Complete Guide to Online Outreach. And this book, that's about a 200-page book, and it has basically a few chapters here on search engine optimization. So if you really want to do a deep dive some of these things, then make sure to download a copy of that book. Other thing I want to mention is that if you'd like to go through a customized consultation of what kind of specific opportunities there might be for the online outreach of your church, then you can book a free outreach discovery call with me, and we can delve into those. We have something called an online outreach assessment that we do at 5 More Talents that will help you identify opportunities that your church specifically might be missing. So I'm going to make sure you're aware of those things. All right. Let's see what we got here. So just a couple things to finish up pillar number 3. For keyword research, there's various tools, but one that I've had good experience with, and we've had good experience with here at 5 More Talents, is Wincher. And there is a free trial you can do of it to get an idea of how it works. Keyword research tools typically do have a price tag associated with them, but our new Pro plan from that 5 More Talents offers, one of the things we have on the roadmap for that is basically integrating some keyword research tools into the WordPress dashboard. But you can see here, one of the things that Wincher does is it gives insights into the intent of the keywords. For example, a Bitcoin price prediction graph is just informational, but a Bitcoin price prediction game maybe has a commercial or navigational intent that kind of relates to what we were seeing on this previous slide. Probably the most useful thing that these keyword research tools do is they give you insights into the search volume, and they also give you insights into the relative difficulty of different keywords. All right, and then this is an example of a page from that church outreach book that gives you an example of a way that you might map specific keywords to specific pages on your site. So, all right, give me a number 4 in the chat if you're ready to go on to pillar number 4. All right, great. All right, so this is definitely probably one of the most technical slides, but this has to relate to something called schema.org markup. So schema.org markup, you can see an example of this on the right. It's some code, and it's basically this agreed upon collection of code that the different search engines collaborate on, like Google and Bing and other, DuckDuckGo and all the different search engine providers. They've collaborated on this, agree on which code can be used to specify, oh, this is a place, or this is an event, or this is a work of art, or whatever. There's all kinds of different code standards. And so for church, a couple that are relevant. One is that there's code that you can put in to specifically indicate that this is in fact a place of worship. This is a location. And you can see here it puts in street address, the city, the state, different things like that. So this is one of those factors that Google looks at, and other search engines look at. Another thing that we know search engines and Google specifically look at is events. So there's specific ways that you can use schema.org markup for events, and there's ways to use it better and worse. So one of the things that churches can run into is the use of recurring events. And this is something on our roadmap at 5 More Talents, is to get better at basically applying this recommendation of having individual individual events specified in the schema.org rather than just one event that just kind of shows up. Let me just show you an example. There is something called the rich results test that, again, Google provides. I can give you a direct link for anyone who's interested, but you can run your website through this and it will show you what is working well. So in this case, for this site, the breadcrumbs, which are the kind of the links to go back to previous pages in the upper level and the secondary level of the site. This one had a valid schema.org markup for a local business. So, but there's some problems with review snippets. So this is another Google tool that is something that should be on your radar to make sure that you're getting as many things as possible done the way that they should be done for maximum search ranking. And then also within Google Search Console, there is a section called enhancements, and you can see here an example of, you can see which events are actually being picked up by the system. So in this case, Sunday school, men's Bible study, and morning prayer Zoom are being detected as valid items that can then be displayed in search results. All right, so give me a 5 in the chat if you're ready to go on to pillar number 5. All right, great. So pillar number 5 relates to citations. So citations, also known as directory listings or offsite listings, are basically mentions and listings of your church on other websites. And there's different forms of this. I would say probably for most churches, the two things are the denominational website. So make sure that you always have your church's information up to date on your denominational website. And then the other thing is what our AI agent technology called Lydia. So one of the things that Lydia does is helps with the citation. So you can see here, if you use this capability that Lydia has, then you can see that it will sync the name, address, phone number, all the information about your church website and your church across a whole variety of different sites, not only Google, but Bing, Apple, Uber, all kinds of sites. There's 40 plus different directories that Lydia can help your church get synced up. So having all of those citations accurate, complete, consistent across all the different websites, all the different online directories is a key ranking factor. All right, so this one here is, you can call this part B of pillar number 5, and this relates to YouTube. So one of the things on YouTube is to make sure to use thumbnails that maximize the click-through rate. So this is where I want to brag on one of our customers who has done a good job actually of posting videos that have thumbnails that people actually do in fact click on. So you can see here, Old Testament proof that Jesus is God. It's very simple, but you can see it got 10,000 views. So that's quite good for just kind of an average church. Or proof that Jesus is the Messiah. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily need to be a high polish thumbnail, but a thumbnail that actually makes people click through. That's what we're going for. So that's a key thing to focus on when you're posting videos, is how can you set up the thumbnail so that people really want to click on it. Another factor is just and this goes back to here, that include latent semantic indexing keywords. That's sort of $1 million phrase. I think that's maybe overcomplicating it a bit. For those of you that are using YouTube, and type a yes in the chat if your church has a YouTube channel. Okay, so one of the things that's within the YouTube studio under content, there's an inspiration panel. So this is a way that you can get ideas for additional titles that you could record video content on. I think the way I would think about this is it's a way that you could repurpose existing video content, maybe putting it into shorts. Because what we have found, and many of our customers have found, is that taking longer videos and then creating shorts out of them is actually a very, very helpful way to increase engagement with your channel and build an audience on YouTube. The last thing I want to just point out is that you want to make sure that when you add the description to the video, that you add some timestamps, because one of the things that YouTube will do is it will try to highlight key moments like you're seeing in this video. You can see here on the right, there's 3 key moments highlighted in this video, and then oftentimes in the description below the video, it'll also highlight those key moments. That's another thing that is worth taking the time to put those timestamps into the description so that it gives the search engine a better idea of all the different parts of the video. All right, so that's pillar number 5. Go ahead and type a 6 in the chat. We're ready for the 6th pillar. Okay. All right. So this relates to Google Ad Grants. And in case you don't know, Google has a nonprofits program, and this has a bunch of different factors to it. But one of them is the Google Ad Grants program. So this provides up to $10,000 a month of free search advertising for verified 501c3 nonprofits. And going back to one of the first slides we looked at about the churches in Reno, Nevada, there was a church that showed up at the top of that list. There's not really any way of knowing whether they're using Google Ad Grants, but maybe they were. I don't know. But they definitely were using Google Ads. So one of the things to note is that there is a strict compliance threshold, which is that accounts must maintain a greater than 5% click-through rate to avoid immediate suspension. So this means that you really need to have very specific keywords that you're targeting. So that's an important thing to note if you're interested in Google Ads Grants. So I have a lot more things I can point you to related to Google Ads Grants, depending on your interest. I'll show you the specific places. Go ahead and just in the chat, type a yes if you want to hear more about Google Ad Grants before we're done, or a no if you're not interested. Okay, great. So we'll come back to that after we finish the slides. All right, so just a little bit of the frontier. Of course, as we know, everybody is trying to figure out how to leverage the latest AI and large language model and so forth, all that technology, machine learning technology. And so just a few thoughts, just thinking out loud from my perspective at 5 More Talents. One of the things that we're really encouraging and equipping our customers to do is to make sure to include a full text transcript with all of their sermons. So this is an example of a site in Southern California where we have recently installed an integration with their sermonaudio.com library that brings in the transcript. Because what we have found is that having the full text transcript along with the audio or video recording of the sermon, over time that really dramatically increases the search visibility of the website and the number of visits to the website. And then, of course, not every pastor has the bandwidth or the interest of doing this, but this is one of our customers in Texas, Heritage OPC, Pastor Carl Miller. He's done a great job over the years of really building a very well-structured blog section. So this would be another example of the way he structured this and the kind of things he writes about. He's done a few webinars for us on this, and they're on the 5 More Talents YouTube channel. And some of these blog posts bring hundreds or dozens, or there might be even one or two that bring like thousands of visitors to their website each month. And that, of course, also helps with the search ranking. And again, there's a couple of recordings we've done with Carl at this point, explaining kind of his methodology. And it's pretty simple, and it's definitely something worth examining. If you've ever thought about having a blog on your site, it's definitely something that can really help with the overall search visibility of the church. So just pulling it all together, when you incorporate the Google Maps profile, making sure that you're aware of any errors that Google's tools are reporting, when you're making sure to, as you're posting videos, to really have detailed descriptions and really good thumbnails, whatever you can do to build topical authority related to just the preaching of the word, the teaching of the word, whether that be through having transcripts in your sermon library and or adding blog posts. Those are all things that factor into getting in the top search results, those top 3 or 4, and allow churches to capture that 70% of those hundreds or thousands of people that are searching for a church near them in your local area. So here's a 30-day checklist. Number 1, make sure you've claimed and categorized your Google profile. Secondly, make sure that your name, address, and phone number perfectly match across all the major directories. Just get in touch with support at 5moretalents.com if you would like some help with that. Post it in the chat, support at 5moretalents.com. Just email that. We have some tools that can help you get a sense of where that stands. Optimizing infrastructure. We have a number of things in place to do that already, but there's always room for improvement there. If you'd like to explore more about where your site stands there, we can help you with that. Okay, drafting intent pages. So to go through that chapter in the online outreach book that talks about mapping keywords to specific pages, that would be worthwhile. Making sure you have schema.org markup, and then making sure you have a really solid standard operating procedure for how you're posting videos on the YouTube channel. All 6 of these things would be well worth your time over the next 30 days. I would also add that making sure you have some way of asking people in the church, helping them to understand the importance of leaving reviews on the Google Maps profile. That is something that is a very, very high value thing. All right, so that really brings us to the last slide of this and to our question and answer time. We have a small but mighty group here today, so you can certainly type your question in the chat, but if you do feel comfortable unmuting yourself and being on camera, acknowledging that this is recorded and it will be posted on YouTube, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
I have a question about the
go ahead.
Google Grants.
Yes.
So I discovered that, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, and actually I got myself set up and we're activated and whatnot. But there's still some roadblocks that I'm facing, and I so just curious, do you guys work with churches to kind of get the ball rolling and how to use that platform and that benefit? Or do you guys have even like a paid plan where you take over that for churches and whatnot? Or
Yeah. Yeah, we do not have a service specifically focused on helping the churches or anyone really with Google Ads grants. However, we do have expertise in running Google Ads. So where that could possibly be helpful to y'all, Edward, is that when we go back to this slide here, let's see, where was it? This strict compliance. So you need to make sure that you have that 5% or higher click-through rate. That's where Five More Talents could possibly help with our expertise, is actually running the campaign in Google Ads to make sure that you can get that click-through rate.
Daniel,
Yes.
can you unpack a little bit more about strict compliance and what exactly that means, and kind of like what are the metrics that you're looking at to ensure that you're meeting that 5% or higher strict compliance standard?
Yep. So specifically click-through rate. And so basically what that means is that there's a certain number of people that's going to see your ad. And you want to make sure that there's enough people actually, not only enough of the people that are seeing the ad that actually click on it. So you can see here the basic strategy there is don't bid on single word keywords like church. Like you're going to need to be super specific, something like Reformed Church in Columbia, Maryland, and that might not even be specific enough. But that's where or it could be like ESL class in Westminster, California, or something like that. So that's basically what you do. You just got to get like a super specific ads, super specific keywords, such that people, at least 5% of the people seeing the ad actually click on it. Otherwise, Google's not going to give you that money for those ads. So.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, happy to answer. All right. What other questions?
Do you want to talk a little bit about the importance of getting reviews on your Google profile and some of the different ways that can be accomplished, and why that can prove to be particularly useful for churches and their like localities?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So basically, let's take a look. Let's go back to these two examples here. So looking at the church in Reno, Nevada example, you can see here that the 4 that are showing up all have a high quantity of reviews. So Calvary Chapel has 192, and they're sponsored. That means they are either using the Google Ad Grants program or they're paying their own way to bid on this keyword church in Reno, Nevada. All right, Grace Church Reno, they're not paying for ads, and they have 265 reviews. Living Stones Church has 139, and then Reno Christian Fellowship has 36. And then if we look at, let's see, church in Dearborn, Michigan, all right, the top 3 that show up have 34, 157, and then 104. And if we click on more places, let's see what we see. Then once you start to get into the churches that didn't show up in those top 3, we see Christ Community has 23, Dearborn Evangelical Covenant has 28, Fairland Alliance has 28. So they all have smaller numbers of reviews. So whether we look at this example or let's look at Reno, looks like we got three churches advertising in Reno, Nevada. How about that? And once we get below those ads, let's see, Grace Church has 265, Living Stone's 136, Reno Christian Fellowship is 36, Calvary Chapel is 193. As we go farther down the list, you can see that they have lower numbers of reviews, but of course it's not the only factor, but it is a significant factor. So hopefully that underscores the importance of the reviews. I think maybe the Dearborn, Michigan example shows it a little bit more clearly, because once we get beyond those first three, all of those, well, except once we get down to these ones, all of those have lower numbers of reviews. One simple action item, and this is assuming you already have the Google Maps profile claimed for the church, is to navigate to this screen where you can see where it says your business on Google and go to ask for reviews. And this will give you a link, and you can share this link in an email. You can post it in Facebook. You can also grab this QR code image and put it on your bulletin or a piece of paper. And then what this does is it provides people something that they can click on or scan, and it takes them to the exact place where they need to go to leave the review. That makes it super simple for the person that needs to leave the review. So I recommend that if you're not already doing that, incorporate that into your 30-day action plan. This is a very, very significant missed opportunity for most churches. So. All right, so how did we get to this page? So basically we go to, let's see. All right, so let's just say this is your church. Then this is not one that I have access to. So this is a really good example. So what you want to do is try clicking on own this business. Let's make sure it's claimed first of all. Okay, so somebody has claimed this, so that's good. So what you want to do is just do this search, and you need to make sure that you're logged into Google using that same account that has management of the profile. And then once you do that, then this additional panel is going to show up that says your business on Google. And then you just click on ask for reviews, and it gives you your unique review request link as well as your QR code. All right. Okay, we have just a few minutes left. What other questions do you have? I want to make sure y'all get the most value that you possibly can out of our meeting today. If you don't have any questions, you can just type a no in the chat. If you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat. Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for coming today. Again, happy to paste these again. Oops. Definitely grab your free copy of the ebook. And if you would like to go over these things in a more individualized way, please book an outreach discovery call. And then if you have any specific questions related to things like accessing any of the tools we went over, like Google Search Console, or need more details on maybe how to get into Google Profile, any of these tools that I showed you, I just got email support@5moretalents.com and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Hope you have a great afternoon and we'll talk to you soon.